Poets need not be garlanded. The poet's head should be innocent of the leaves of the sweet bay tree twisted. All honour goes to poetry, and poets need no laurels. Why be lauded for the love of trying to nail the disembodied image with that one plain word to make it palpable? For listening into silence, for the rhythm capable of carrying the thought that's not thought yet, the pursuit's its own reward.
Liz, leaves are a central image in the poem that you read to us, and leaves are in fact the image that has come to stand for the Scottish Poetry Libraries. That's true, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. By leaves we live is the lovely motto.
And what does that mean?
Well, we live by these leaves from a book, don't we? You know, in the poem, really, I'm talking about that old habit of putting the leaves of the sweet bay tree and twisting them and giving them to poets, quite literally. The Makar isn't, you're not a laureate exactly, but it's not really personal. It's about honouring poetry in itself, and you're very well aware that you're standing in for poetry.
We have Poets Laureate all over the place now. It does seem to me that there is more weight to the appointment in Scotland perhaps than there is elsewhere, because poetry seems to be so central to Scottish culture and to Scotland's sense of itself.
I mean, I don't want to over-romanticise Scots. I don't think we're a massively poetic nature, but if you've got a national poet like Burns, who must be, the ultimate in national poets, I mean, there's even a dedicated night that cheers you up in the winter, dedicated to his supper. Because we learned him off by heart and learned that he was, on the one hand, a great poet and one of us, I think maybe that natural bit of people, because all babies love nursery rhymes, and to love nursery rhymes is to love poetry. That bit of us stays a bit more alive than in other places. So you have to let the poem come to voice by footering late in the dark at home, by muttering syllables of scribbled lines, or what might be lines eventually, if you can get it right. And this perhaps in public, the daytime train, the biro, the back of an envelope, and again the fun of the wild goose chase that goes beyond all this fuss. If you're diving around Edinburgh in the festival, even in the book festival, which has got books everywhere, you still don't get the peace that you get down here. It's a wonderful building. It's a beautiful bit of architecture.
Described as a poem in glass and stone.
Well, I think it is a poem in glass and stone. It's a lovely building. The space upstairs is a wonderful place for doing a reading. It's not vast, but we can celebrate openings, and I've been to many a great night, listened to some great readings there. These wonderful skylights letting some light down onto the top of these tables. We're next to anthologies. I love anthologies.
Me too.
Yeah, aren't they great?
Yes, I think they're the best thing.
I think the best way to start reading poetry, because if you don't like a particular one, leave that. Wait till you find one. They show you a modern poem from Yugoslavia next to an ancient Chinese poem translated by the lovely Arthur Whaley, and you get little enthusiasm. You go and buy the rest of the book. Inspiration. Bell rings, penny drops, the light bulb goes on and tops the not good enough idea that went before. No, that's not how it goes. You write, you score it out, you write it in again the same, but somehow with a different stress. This is a game you very seldom win, and most of your efforts end up in the bin. I think poetry in libraries was always the thing that I got out. My friend Caroline Duffy, the proper poet laureate, she was, she like all the rest of us is appalled about what's happening with public libraries at the moment. And she was saying that she simply would not be a poet without the library, and I think it's the same. And it's got the archive of Edwin Morgan, the first Scottish Makar, the first national poet of Scotland, and it's got a wonderful desk of his. And as I'm trying to work on a kind of poetic theatre piece about him for a Glasgow festival called Glasgow. I think I might come and try and work down there and see if a bit of that magic, rubs off.
How did it feel to take over as the Makar from a poet like Edwin Morgan?
Oh gosh, Edwin Morgan was a great and an international and a national poet. I'm just kind of quite a popular versifier, and there's a lot better poets than me in Scotland, but a lot of them are younger, so they'll get the chance to be the Makar later.
Do you see
It's
yourself
5
as a
years.
sort of keeper of the flame?
Do I think that poetry is important? Yes, I do. Do I think that a lot of it now is too self-regarding and insular and up itself, really? Yes, I do. I think it's got to communicate as well. There's one hunched and gloomy heron haunts that nearby stretch of River Kelvin, and it wouldn't if there were no fish. If it never, in all that greyness passing, caught a flash, a gleam of something, made that quick stab. That's how a poem is after a long nothingness. You grab at that anything. And this is food to you. It comes through as leaves do. There's a lot of stuff that's out just now. I just don't get what the people are trying to do. I'm not saying these people are phonies, but I think there's probably a tiny, tiny audience for that kind of poetry. And some of them have quite a lot of power.
Yes.
And that's a thing that's to be regretted. Edwin Morgan, when he became the Makar, was too old and too ill to get on his bike and get about. And because I've got a new knee now this summer, I might be able to go on my bike a bit this winter and go to some places and do some arguments about poetry, get people saying why they don't like it, and then finding out that perhaps they do. Something's gone wrong whenever it's become, in schools, a horrible thing for exams. All praise to poetry, the way it has of attaching itself to a familiar phrase in a new way, insisting it be heard and seen. Poets need no laurels, surely. Their poems, when they can make them happen, even rarely, crown them with green.